Hello and welcome to today's project with Ecstasy Crafts. Today we're going to be making this pencil case with a lovely stenciled hare that you can see here. So for today's project, we've used the stencil from Pink Ink Design. This is Love is in the Hare. It's a two-piece layering stencil. So you can see here that you're going to have a background and a foreground that you can use to add extra detail onto your design. Now the pencil case that we've used is from Corp. You can see it's just a nice plain, simple pencil case. It's got a zipper up top and it's nice, thick, high quality canvas material. We are going to do a nice sprayed background. However, we've already done that on the pencil case here just to save a little bit of time because it does take time to dry. So in the meantime, I'll show you how to do it just on this test piece of canvas. So the dye that we're going to use to color the background of our pencil case is from Aladine. This is IZINK textile dye, and this is yellow color. It comes in a wide range of colors, so you can kind of choose whichever one works for you. As you can see, it comes in a spray bottle, but we don't want to get that misted effect when we design our background. We want something a little more subtle. So what I've done is I've actually just mixed the yellow with about half as much water to give us a nice thin dye here, and we're actually just going to paint it on using a paintbrush. So to get a nice smooth effect, first you're going to actually wet your canvas because again, the dye is quite strong, so we just want a really, really light translucent finish. So give it a good spray. It's going to be nice and wet. And just load up some dye onto your brush and start in the center and just brush outwards. And you can see even with all that water, it's actually quite heavy. It's a very pigmented dye. Now this is a permanent fabric dye. You can wash it, you can put it through the washing machine. Now all you'll have to do at the end of the project, once everything is dry and finished up, is you're going to want to heat set it with an iron, and that makes it possible to put it in the wash. And you can see how when you brush it on and it's nice and diluted with water, you're not going to get any rough brush edges. And we just want to have a nice yellow halo behind our hair. So you're just going to want to let your piece dry. It actually takes quite a while because it is a very thick canvas, and if you added a lot of water, it's going to soak in really well. So you can use a heat gun to dry it, or you can just let it sit and come back to it later. As you can see, we've already done our pencil case here. And you can see we didn't go right to the edges, we just did some soft brushing, but again, it's a matter of personal taste. You could dye the whole background if you like, or you could leave it plain like we did on our first sample. We just thought it would be nice to give it a little bit of color to make the hair pop a bit. So now that you have your nice dry dyed pencil case, it's time to start with your first layer of your stencil. Now I'll just show you on the inside of the pencil case, I've actually just added a little bit of cardstock, and you can see it's very thick canvas. The dye didn't go through, but just in case, and also it gives you a nice flat surface to work on as well with your stencil. So this pink ink stencil comes in two pieces. So your first piece is going to be the background piece. So we've just got the hair here. You can see it doesn't have really any of the details that the finished hair is going to have. Now you can see it looks a little gummy on the back here. That's just because we've actually sprayed the stencil with this Aladine repositionable spray glue. Now this glue is fantastic for stencils, and it's really useful for this project in particular because it's going to stop any of your paint from running underneath your project, and it's also going to help hold your stencil in place. Now that your stencil's laid down onto your pencil case, you can start with coloring the bunny. And the way that we've done that is actually with this Aladine fabric paint. You can see here, comes in these nice little bottles. This paint is fantastic for using on canvas. It's thin enough to blend, but it's not so thin that it runs very easily underneath your stencils. So it's really great for making designs, especially on these Canvas Corp products. So I'm using the purple as well as the white. That'll just give us a little bit of detail on our hair. You can see on the finished sample, it's very, very subtle, but we've just added a little bit of white up here and just make the color a little bit softer on his back. So we're not going to dilute the paint at all. We're just going to use that at its regular thickness, and we're going to use this Aladine paintbrush, and we're just going to brush it on. This can take a little bit of time, especially when you're working on canvas. It's not going to spread on as smoothly as it does on paper. It helps to kind of do a little bit of a stippling motion. Now I want to be extra careful around the ears here. I have used my stencil glue, but because the zipper happens to just be up at the tip of the ears here, I just want to be careful that no little edges are lifted up because they'll let some paint get underneath. Now you can actually just take a little bit of paper towel and just clean off your brush a bit and grab up some white. And you could be as detailed with this as you like, or you could skip this step altogether. It's up to you. Just brush on a little bit of white and kind of blend it in a little bit, maybe on the back of his ears, top of his head. And keep in mind, it's okay to make little mistakes if you do, because we're going to be covering it over with the second stencil anyways. So you're not going to see a ton of the detail on the body, but you just want to make sure you have a nice full coverage. Now that your first layer is nice and dry, we're going to move on to doing the second layer with the second stencil that comes in the package. This is your detail stencil. As you can see, mine's a little messy. This is my second time around. So you're just going to want to carefully line the detail stencil up on top of your project. Just like that. Now this stencil is also coated with the repositionable glue, so as you can see, it's sticking down for me here. Everything should line up nicely. Perfect. Now for our next layer, we're going to use a couple of different tools. We're going to be using some texture paste. This is Aladine IZINK 3D. And again, comes in a wide range of colors. So we'll be doing some geranium, and this is bamboo. And I'm also going to use a little bit more paint just for the back legs, just to give it a bit of depth and make it look a bit shadowed. So this is just a brown paint that's going to look really nice with that purple paint that we used for the rabbit. So because we're using multiple colors, we're just going to want to mask off the areas that we don't want to work on quite yet. So I'm just going to start off by masking off my rabbit's legs because I know that they are going to be brown. And I think I'm going to do the underside of the tail in brown as well. So I'll mask that off. Now the stencil also comes with these nice little swirly areas, which I'm going to do in green. You can see I did on my last project. So some of them are a little close to where I want the pink areas. So I'm just going to do a little bit of masking there just to avoid any mistakes. Just cover that up. Okay. Get that guy there. And there's going to be a little bit of green underneath the stomach as well. All right. So now that my project's all masked, I'm going to just start off with my pink texture paste. See here, it's a really nice consistency. And I'm going to be spreading that with a spatula. We do have these available from Aladine as well. Just slide some on. And just adding a bit of pressure, I'm just going to slide the texture paste over the top of the stencil. And this is just going to fill in all those lovely extra details that you get using a layering stencil. All right, so looking like quite the mess. I just use my baby wipe here and wipe that nice and clean. And now I'm going to move on to my green. This is the bamboo texture paste. We're just going to uncover some of these swirly areas. Now for the legs, I'm just going to use more of the fabric paint in the brown. On my initial project, I did do this with a brown texture paste as well, but I thought just because these are the back legs and these are a bit of a shadow, that it's nice to have them kind of fade into the background a little bit. All right, so our project is all covered in color. So now we're going to lift up the stencil. And he looks just beautiful. So pick him up here so you can see a little bit more detail. And see how the texture paste adds some lovely dimension to the project. Now, this texture paste will take some time to dry. You can use your heat gun to get it going, or you can leave it, just sort of let it sit overnight. Well, I hope you had fun following along with this project. Thank you very much for watching, and for more projects like this, check out our YouTube channel. Just hit the bell to subscribe.